All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of The Good Life. Today, my guest, Mr. Stephen Hugh Barry, is a DJ by night, the host and head of the Blueprint to Freedom podcast, which focuses on the fundamental principles to help you reach your goals. And he also runs a mobile detailing business. So this man is hustling and grinding and making stuff happen. We also we have the same business coach, Dr. Myron Golden. And I heard him speaking one day. I heard Stephen speaking one day about discipline. And I thought, that's a man that I've got to talk to. So Stephen, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for, having me on the show.
Come on. Let's get into it. So, one of the things I just want to start off with is I heard you in one of our coaching sessions with Myron Golden. You were talking about discipline, and we were talking a little bit about Ryan Holiday and obviously stoicism. So I'd love to just hear you a little bit. How has discipline played into your life? What are you currently learning or experiencing with the principle of discipline?
Discipline, it's something that I want to say in the last 5 years really kind of implemented in my life. Prior to that, I was kind of more just kind of letting life figure itself out on its own. And I was kind of unsatisfied with the way my life was going, because when you let life figure itself out on its own, it doesn't go the way you want. You kind of like just stumble upon things. Life is not intentional when you're just letting life do life. So I wanted to really just have the results that I was looking for when it comes to health, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to business, when it comes to success. That's what I was looking for. And I made a concerted effort to implement discipline in my life. And what I mean by that is like more like, okay, set a schedule, for myself. I didn't have a schedule at the time. It was kind of more like, I'll get it done when I get it done, or I'll get it done tomorrow. We all know what that means. When you say I'm gonna get it done tomorrow, it never gets done. So like setting the schedule, being more intentional with my time, being more intentional with, my space, what I'm doing. And that really helped me out when I implemented discipline in my life. The way it helped me out was I got results. When you're disciplined over time, you start to get results. You start to see results, I always kind of equate it to somebody who's going to the gym, and you're not going to go to the gym, work out one day, look in the mirror and see results. It's going to happen over, it's going to happen over a period of time, but you just have to be consistent. That's kind of like, discipline is like, I want to say the master key for success, because like when you're disciplined, it kind of like brings every other thing that you're looking for together, together. So yeah.
Come on. No, it's so true. Like there's areas in my life where when I see consistency, I see results. And there's areas of my life right now, I'm like, man, I know that I am not disciplined in this area. I know that I'm up and down, I'm in and out, or I'm not day in and day out hitting it. And so, yeah, I love Tom Bilyeu leans into discipline. Do you have a story off the cuff of just in your own life over the last, or maybe before and after, but like just implementing discipline over the last 5 years, how you've seen, could even be in a small way, but like, hey, when I started implementing discipline in this area of my life, I started experiencing a shift?
Yeah. So it's going to be kind of cheesy, but I've always wanted to have a six pack,
Come on.
And as men, that's always something that everybody wants to get, what I'm saying? No. And I could, for the life of me, I could never get it. I could never accomplish that. Like it's like I work out and I'm like, man, like, what do I got to do to get a six pack? And the reason why it was just my training was just up and down. On top of that, my diet wasn't the best, and it wasn't enough compound effort. It was just kind of like, okay, I worked out this day, and then I took a couple of days, and I worked out, then I worked out here. And I was doing effort, I was doing activity, but it wasn't compounded activity. The moment the point where I started implementing, like, okay, actual training regimen. Monday I'm gonna hit the gym. Tuesday I run. Wednesday I hit the gym. Thursday I run. Friday I hit the gym. Saturday I hit the gym. Sunday I run. When I started doing that over a 3-month span, they just showed up.
Come on.
It's crazy. It's really crazy how that works.
No, and I'm with you. I'm a skinny dude, and so there's been time, or like a lot of times over my life, I'm like, I really love to gain 20, 25 pounds of muscle mass, and so the time when I'm like baseline, I sit at about 150, give or take. There was a time when I got up to 180, and I had almost like some pudge to me, which is hard to believe, but it was where I was like militant. I had my meal plans, all like, that's where I'm like, man, when people are overweight, I'm like, hey, I know it's going to sound funny for me to say this, but I totally get it. Not because I know what it's like to be overweight, but because I know what it's like to do a body recomposition. I know what it's like to try and take your baseline body weight and shift it. So my metabolism is super high. So like, man, I had to have all my meals planned out, literally like force feeding myself food, where I was like, because I knew, I was like, I have to hit these calories and this protein. Now I gained the weight. I didn't quite hit the muscle mass thing. So had I stayed with it longer, I would have trimmed down the fat and continue to recalibrate. But the time when I at least gained the weight up was super disciplined. So I'm with you. I haven't hit a super defined 6-pack yet, but that's the truth.
And discipline is kind of, it's just, if everybody did what they knew they were supposed to do, regardless of how they felt like, if they felt like doing it or not, then we would all have the things that we wanted in life. But it's something that human beings constantly struggle with. It's not like something, I don't think you can ever master that. Like, it's something that you have to constantly show up each and every single day, and you have to face it every single day. It's that voice in your head that's like, oh, just do it tomorrow. You've been working hard all day. Just take the day off, and it's kind of like, you got to shut that. You got to develop the muscle of shutting that voice off and doing what you know you're supposed to be doing, regardless of how you feel. Because that's the number one thing there. Because anybody can do it when they feel like doing it.
Yeah.
That's easy. When you're motivated and everything is kicking on all cylinders, you're just like, I'm going to get it done. And it's the most easiest thing. But the day you wake up and you're like, man, I do not want to get up right now.
Yeah.
That's the day that counts, because that's, those are the days, and you're going to have more of those days than you have the days that you're motivated. So that's kind of what I learned over time. Like, I have to continually fight the old me, which is the me that doesn't want to do what I know I'm supposed to do to get to that new me, the me that has a 6-pack, the me that has the business, the successful business, the me that has whatever it is that I want. Those are the things that I learned when it comes to when you're in the actual mix of it all. You start to learn those things, like, wow, this is what is possible if I just stick with it, regardless. So
no, you're so right on. And I've had so it's something I acknowledge. I'm like, I would benefit from more discipline in certain areas of my life and certain areas of business. And it makes me think. I've had a few conversations with people, and I've heard people break it down. It's been impactful. So something that goes along with discipline, I think, is the word between decision and choice. And so Myron Golden talks about it. I've heard and one of my pastors back in the day talked about it, but and even one of the coaches I had when we were having a conversation was like, hey, this idea too of like, okay, hey, Matthew, is your calendar, like, is it just a bunch of ideas? Like, oh, or is it like, do you treat your calendar as sacred? Like, no, what goes on this calendar is etched in stone. Like, as God is my witness, as my word is my bond, what I've written on here, I will do. So help me God. Like there's something, it's intense, but there's something about that. And so for people listening, it's decision is like Latin day, to cut away, and day means of, and then incision, to cut away. So it's like, a decision is not just like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Oh, it'd be fun if. It's like, no, I've cut away everything else. I'm going to do this thing. And I found, I don't nail it. I'm still in process here, but I found like when I frame up my week or my day the night before, and I say, okay, I am making, like, a lot of times I'll do like 3 decisions for the week or 3 decisions for the day. And I'll say, okay, I am going to do this thing. It definitely sets a different tone, and there's a higher likelihood that I'm going to get that done when I'm like, Matthew, you're giving your word to yourself. And then as I do those things, it builds trust in myself. It builds self-confidence because I'm like, I kept my word. So I've definitely experienced the mental shift looking at it from a decision I'm making versus like, oh, I'll write it down. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't.
And when you said your word, your relationship to your word, man, like the thing that gets me is, it's crazy. Like, a lot of people, they want to stand out, so they do radical things to stand out. But like, if you're just a person of your word, that is just like majority of the game. Because a lot of people, they give their word to things they don't have any intention of following through with. And that's kind of something that I've been working on as well. Like, I don't want to give my word to something that I know that I'm not going to get done. Even this podcast, your show, I told you I would get on there and do it. And like I said, it's always that voice in your head, like, oh, you could be always doing something else, but then probably unproductive stuff, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, you gave your word to someone. And the more you follow through with your word, like you said, the more you can trust yourself, the more that others trust you. Because if other people know you as someone who keeps their word, they're gonna, if something, let's just say if something were to come up where you are someone that I know that keeps your word. And I know that you can definitely fill this spot. You can fill this void in this space for somebody else. I'm gonna definitely recommend them to you because I know, hey, Matthew's gonna show up. So it's like all this stuff here is really just kind of like making you. It's like an insurance policy. It's literally telling you, like, if you do all these things, you keep your word, you show up every day regardless of how you feel, you can live the life that you want to live. It's hard, but it's only hard in the front end. It's easy on the back end. So
it's so true. And it's man, and I fully acknowledge, like, there's discipline is an area in my life that I'm like, hey, there's work to be done here. I'm in process. There's some things in the skill set that I've mastered or am much farther along in the mastery process, but there's areas that I definitely look at where I'm like, oh man, even running my own business, running my own coaching business with business owners, it's like, man, there's no one telling me what to do. It's on me, and so the amount of self-powered self-control to be like, okay, every day I'm going to get after it. It's challenging, man. It's challenging, but you're right. There is a formula, and discipline is one of those things. Shifting a little bit, if I can. One of the things that I've been focusing on is business owners that are in burnout. So I work with and coach business owners that they have a successful business, they're entrepreneurs, but for one reason, maybe they've lost vision, maybe they've lost the belief in themselves, they've taken some hard losses, and they've kind of hit a wall, and they've kind of hit that, whether you want to call burnout or overwhelm, or they've just got stuck. And so I'd love to kind of dig into that. When we were talking on the phone, or I think a couple weeks ago, you were kind of sharing some of your experience with burnout, of like, hey, I can't really even afford to be burned out, which I was like, yeah, that's actually also an interesting take. But would just be curious, like, what's your experience with, in the realm of business, whether you would say burnout or exhaustion, overwhelm, the struggle. Like, I'm just curious, what's your experience been like that? And yeah, if you had a story or two. And I also there's a couple stories I can share as well from kind of my experience in business realm.
So it's funny because that you say that. I was listening to something. I don't know what it was, a podcast or was one of these YouTube videos. It's like self-development, and the person on the video said, which I agree with 100%. But when you're in it, it's sometimes it's like hard to see that. He said that being burnt out is a luxury.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I never heard that before. I was like, when he broke it down, he said the reason why being burnt out is a luxury is because if we look at people that come here from other countries that have nothing to their name, barely have any clothes on their backs, and they do better than us Americans that are here with the little small opportunity they get. You never hear them talking about being burnt out, or they don't want to get up or nothing. They're after it, man, like no other. And like we said on the phone, this kind of ties into that. It's like what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. I think when someone is getting burnt out, I feel like being burnt out is something that can happen. But I think it happens when you lose sight of what you're really doing, what you're doing for.
Okay.
Like the purpose, what the purpose is of why you're doing your business, or why you're going to the gym, why you're trying to be healthy.
Yeah.
You get burnt out when you lose sight of that vision of what of your goal, So that's my take on it. Like, when I said I can't afford to be burnt out, because if you think about it, you get burnt out and then you're not doing what you committed to do. All the people that you were put here to affect and touch, and the only people that you can reach will not be reached because you're burnt out. I can't reach the people that you're put here, or you can't reach the people that I'm supposed to be, reaching. So being burnt out, like I just, in my head, it's like, it's just, it's because you lost the vision of why you're doing it. That's my take on being burnt out.
Yeah. And I think there's I absolutely, I 100% agree with you in the realm of whether it's the cause or the effect. When there's a burnout happening, there's a lack of sustainability and there's a disconnection with the vision. Whether that's the cause or effect, I think both could be true. Yeah, and I'll just share, like, so when was it 2015 or 16, I joined a company, a publishing company, and basically it was like a franchise. So I was building this social magazine here in Portland, Oregon. So I was commuting like an hour north, and I'd never really done in-person sales successfully. So every Monday I would set meetings with business owners. So the idea was, like, it was a social magazine for a affluent, wealthy neighborhood. And so I would sell advertising to like real estate brokers, landscapers, contractors, people that would want to do business with all the wealthier homeowners in the neighborhood. And I would sell advertising into this little neighborhood. newsletter that we developed. And so I knew no one, I had no connections. And so every Monday I would set appointments, and then Tuesday through Friday, I would drive an hour up to Portland and meet with all these contractors, dentists, real estate brokers. And man, by the end, so I was driving for Lyft on the evenings and weekends to make ends meet. And then during the day was running these meetings, and I was just like anxious and depressed and just like burnt out and overwhelmed. And by the end, when I finally launched, I did all the hard work of getting people into these 12, 24, 36 month contracts with the magazine. And by the end, a few months after launching it, I sold it because I was so exhausted and fatigued that I just didn't have any gas left in the tank. And so that's my experience. Well, luxury or not, it happened. And I think there's something what you're saying too about like, just right. Like, man, like when you got to do what you got to do, you also you make it happen. But yeah, so that I think that's go for it.
Question for you. When you say burnt out, are you referring to energy wise, just doing way too much than I don't know, you just exhausted all the energy in your energy bank? Or are you saying burnt out as in like tired of doing what you're doing, like you wanting to? Because I don't know, I don't know if burnt out, it might have different definitions based on the person and what they're experiencing. So I'm not really.
No, that's a really good point, right? Because sometimes, and this is an aside, but sometimes I'll see people arguing on some show on the news or on a podcast, right? And it's like you guys haven't conducted a definition of terms. You guys are like defining the word differently and then arguing about a different definition. So it's also a really good point, just like a definition of terms. So yeah, when I say burnt out, I mean, to me, it's more of an energetic. It would be, the synonyms would be like exhausted. It would be more of an energetic, like, man, you got nothing left in the tank. You're exhausted. There's no more gas in the tank. Less, and I mean, like, oh, I'm bored with this. I'm just tired of this. Like,
this is what I was. That was what I was mostly referring to. Getting tired of what you're doing and not the energy aspect. Like, I can get that now. The energy aspect. I've felt, that part, like, I haven't stopped. I'm going. Like, sometimes possibly 24 hours, got like 3 hours of sleep, still hitting it. So I get where you're coming from when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, though, I do feel like I have, when I do those, every now and then, I feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because I can look back and say, oh, I did that. Like it's.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. But I get where you're coming from when you say, the energy depletion.
And for me, I'm like, I'm more, my fascination is like, hey, what does it take to play the long game in life? Like, what does it take to play, to run the marathon, not the sprint? Like, because I think that, man, when we're talking running a campaign, a project, or a sprint, yeah, absolutely. You can go hard in the paint for 6 weeks or a couple months, or, like, hey, like, I've got this project that I've got to build. Artists will talk about this when they're cutting a new album, where he's just like, man, we just 18 hours a day, we just did it. So absolutely, I think anything can be done for a short amount of time. And there's something like powerful about, like, man, I just poured my soul into it. But yeah, my fascination is like, man, sustainability, when we're talking about like, man, like your body, eating right, sleeping right, taking care of your body, having the relationships you need in your life, having the fundamental pieces and the foundation, so that I'm not in a place, or a business owner isn't in a place where they're like, man, I'm not sleeping well, I'm lonely, I'm isolated, I'm exhausted. Like, man, that's not a place where, if you got to do it, you got to do it. But yeah, how do you construct the fundamental building blocks so that it's like, man, I'm unstoppable. I'm crushing it. I'm certainly going through hardship at times, but like, man, the building blocks to life are in place. So that's kind of where my fascination comes, is like, how do you set up a life and a business practice as you as the owner where it's sustainable long term?
I kind of have it's not a solution end all be all, but like for me, when I'm doing something and I know, or it's something I want to implement over time, I understand like, you see these gurus, they get on YouTube and they're like, I like people who keep it real. Like, so that's the reason why I like Myron, he keeps it real.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are on YouTube or they do these podcasts and they're like, they're not 100% transparent. They make it sound like, oh, when I'm doing this thing, or what is it, eating right, I eat right every single day for 7 years straight. And they'll never share the day that I messed up and I didn't eat right. Because we all know, like, as human beings, you always have to keep course correcting yourself along the way. So you could go for like 3 months eating everything. You're just hitting personal bests, and then there'll be a day where you just you just don't get up in time. And that just domino effect, the whole day is off. Those days should be shared. I don't know why they don't ever share those days, because you could more really relate to that, because I know those days happen, but then it's not something to beat yourself up about. It's like, okay, today I messed up. Tomorrow I'm gonna do better, and you make sure you put everything in place where you don't mess up again. So I think it's just more of a to keep consistent, thing going. You gotta keep course correcting, like a ship where it might come off of the route or the direction it's supposed to be in, but you bring it back in line where it's supposed to be. That's kind of more of that's what I do. Like, I know, like, I can sit here to a blue in the face and say, oh yeah, man, I'm disciplined. And yeah, I am majority of the time, but there's days where I can't even, like one thing I have, like, I made a commitment to read 10 pages a day. And there's days where I don't get to it. And I can see I can see when I'm not getting to something, that I can tell, like, okay, how much have I progressed in this area? So one thing I wanted to learn was Spanish, like relearn Spanish. And it's like, I got to go back to the drawing board with that and see how I can better implement that into my schedule, because I haven't been getting on that Spanish app to learn it. I bought the subscription and I haven't picked it up to learn it. So like, it's more just I don't know. I think life is just more, you gotta go and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Kind of go from there. That's where
100%. I think, and I appreciate that too. It's like, for sure, I was talking with some people about this maybe at Myron's last event, but we were at Myron's Offer Mastery Live event in Tampa, Florida. I was sitting at lunch and talking with a few people, but it's right when you're leading a group of people as a business owner, or as a coach, consultant, a lot of us in that space, we've got clients, and so it's like, how much do you share? How much are you transparent and vulnerable? Like, what's beneficial, what's not? Like, that's also a good question. But the value of, even if it's what you've been through, maybe it's not exactly the struggle of the present moment, but at least being honest about the journey. Like, there's so much value in that, because otherwise it's this, and totally there's this tendency, I think, to share all the wins and all the victories. Like, oh, I've got the private jet and the Lamborghini and the cars, and I'm a millionaire, and man, how awesome am I? But it's like, well, I can't relate to that. So now all of a sudden, like the hero's journey, like Russell Brunson will talk about, it's like, well, now you're a hero that I actually don't even relate to you. And so there's nothing there that I can peg on. Like, I could worship you, which is maybe what you want. Like, wow, you're so awesome. I wish, but that's, so when people do that, it's more ego driven. It's like, I have a need for everyone to think how awesome am I. And so I'm not going to share all the failures, all the times I was depressed and anxious and stressed out, the loneliness, the isolation, the failures. I'm just going to share the wins. And that's why I appreciated when I went to Russell Brunson's event, Funnel Hacking Live, a few years back. And the first time I went, Tom Bilyeu shared, he was the sold Quest Nutrition for like $1 billion and has an Impact Theory YouTube show. But he got up there and he just shared his story. And I was like, man, here's this guy that sold his company for $1 billion, but he's so relatable. Nothing about him feels like, man, I'm the king of the world and you all suck. It was all like, he shared about how he was overweight, depressed, just sitting on his couch, not taking action, and like his journey of going from darkness to discipline. And it was like, okay, man, if this guy can do it, maybe I can do it too. So yeah, I'm so with you. There's so much value in sharing. That's why I'm always drawn to stories. I'm like, I want to share on this show. I want to share my stories, my struggles of like, here's where I failed. Here's where and even now, hey, here's the areas that I'm developing in. And I think it's so much value when you, even just a simple story, like I set a goal to learn Spanish, and not executing on it. And so I got to go back to the drawing board and either decide, okay, this isn't for the season, or, okay, how do I create leverage for it? So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. I think the failure, in my opinion, the failure is more important for the journey than the successes. Why? Because if someone just always sharing their successes, you can't really, you can learn that, okay, it's possible to win, but you don't know how to win. Through the failures, you learn how to win. So that to me is very valuable, what you said. Like, it's important to share the failure aspect, because that's what's gonna allow you to sustain your success and become the person that can continue to stay at that level, or get above that level. Is to fail.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
So that's why I think that we all relate to people who are being 100% vulnerable about what they went through to get to where they are. And then you opposed to that person, oh yeah, man, yesterday I did this and I got all this stuff, and like those guys, you can't really relate to them, because it's like, okay, well, that's not my experience, and when I'm trying to do what you're doing, I'm not experiencing anything like that, So
no, totally. And that's where even like, and sometimes there's personalities that I gravitate towards or don't. And it's not because, like, there's some guys that I don't jam as much on YouTube or Instagram, not because I think they're wrong, just because I'm like, oh, that's not what I need in this season. Like sometimes a Gary V, he's a great dude, but sometimes it's just like there can be the feel from him sometimes, like, every day I'm hustling. I get up at 4 a.m. I sleep 3 hours. And I'm not saying he's not one dimensional, but sometimes it's like, oh, okay, I actually like can't do great on like 6 hours of sleep for a lot of nights. Like, I need 8 hours of sleep. So it's not super relatable.
Sleep is extremely important. It really is. And there'll be times where you have to lose it, but you shouldn't be losing it every night.
Right. And that's the sustainability part for me. I'm like, hey, I need to listen to voices of people that are like, hey, I was successful and like I didn't destroy my life in the process and destroy my marriage. And and so
because that's not successful. Is that successful? Right. That is not. Success is accomplishing to me, this is what success is.
Yeah.
Is being able to simultaneously, accomplish your goal.
Yeah.
And at the same time, keep every other aspect of your life in check. You know? So yeah, maybe here and there, you'll probably you're gonna neglect some things.
Yeah.
You're gonna be out of balance sometimes, but
yeah,
I mean, you have to be able to have the awareness to bring those areas back in check, because those areas are important too.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, the long game. Yeah, man. Yeah, is there? So here's a question. I'm curious. If you were to go, this is something I'll think about every once in a while. If you were to go back, how old are you, by the way, Stephen?
I just turned 34, like literally.
Come on.
Like what? 3 days ago?
Yeah. Okay. Happy belated birthday, man.
Appreciate it, man.
I'm 35, so we're in a similar space. Yeah, so are you married, by the way?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
No.
Okay, cool. So if you were to go, I'm just curious, like I'm always fascinated by like people's responses to questions of life. So if you were to go back like 20 years to 14-year-old you, like if you, let's say, like I think about, I don't know if you ever saw the Disney movie The Kid with Bruce, what's got anyways, I forgot his name, but so anyways, yeah, Bruce Willis. Yeah, he goes back in time and he's talking, the adult version of him is talking to the kid version of him. I'm curious, like if you could time travel back and have like a moment with 14-year-old you, like on a park bench in your neighborhood, like what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to mess up faster.
Yeah.
Like in a good way, like not go and get DUIs and do all this other stuff. But I mean, like, get to experience in life quicker. The reason why is because I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of people don't. The more you expose yourself to what life has to offer, the more you expose yourself to like different things that you might be good at doing, or you never know. Like if you keep yourself in a box, you never know like what you're capable of doing. So when I was younger at that age, my mind was more like my world was my family. That was it. Like I didn't think anything outside of that. The moment where I started to get a real sense of what could be possible for my life, outside of just regular, work. And there's nothing wrong with a job, but like, the moment I got a taste of being my own boss, being able to control my time and all that stuff, I did not want the other life anymore. Like I was like, I'm not sold on that plan anymore. And it was when I got started in network marketing. I got started in a network marketing company back in it's like 2014, 2015. I got started in a network marketing company, and I started to see like I started to travel different places for the first time in my life. Went on a plane and started doing these things, and I'm like, man, like there's like a whole nother world out here than what I'm used to. So I would, if I go back and tell myself at the age of 14 anything, I would tell myself to mess up. Just get out there and experience life. Because experience life, network and meet people, make friends. I would tell myself to become somebody who can talk to people, like become somebody who can win friends and influence. That's like, if you can win friends and influence people, that's like the number one skill that you can ever learn. Because that is like literally what life's all about.
Yeah.
We're social beings.
Yeah.
We literally need to socialize and network with each other. Like that's, if people just understand that life is all about collaboration, it will go a lot further. So that's what I would tell myself at the age of 14. That's what I wish I knew back then.
Yeah.
We got like a head start on life for sure. So
it's so I'm so with you. I read. I'm assuming too. You've read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
yeah, I did.
Yeah, such
a.
a. I mean, he like wrote it over a century ago, and it's like profound and timeless wisdom. I literally just bought it again the other day because I'm like, this is just such a classic book on how to win friends. Like that's the game of life. Like if people will do what people will do for a friend, they will never do because it's the policy of the company they work for. It's like on a customer service call, sometimes you get on a call, you need help with an airline ticket or from a cell phone company, something happened, you've got a problem. It's like, look, if they don't like you, they're like, I'm sorry, sir, this is the policy. But if they like you and there's a connection with that customer service rep, they're like, all right, hold on, let me hook you up. Like this happens so many times to me where they're like, all right, you know what? Hold on, there's this one thing I can do, and let me check the system. All right, hold on, I did this one thing. I went and it's like, dude, people will hook you up if they consider you a friend. And I think that's so good what you said about like, hey, mess up faster. Like this whole concept of fail forward of like, look, don't be locked in by perfectionism. Like make mistakes, fail, try, take risk, put yourself out there. Like take the hit, take the burn, take the loss. Like children are master learners, and it's because they're not afraid to look. The way they learn a language, right? They make all these. They sound like complete idiots, and they just
absolutely correct.
That
is so correct. They don't care what they look like. They don't care what they look like. They don't care who's watching. I remember the time when I felt the most freedom and the most self-expression was when I was a child. Yeah. Because I would play with imaginary friends and imagine and do things. Yeah. Not saying that imaginary friends are real, but it's just the concept of the matter. You're able to see things that are not, you see them with your mind when you're a child. It's like when we become an adult, we got to relearn all the stuff. Like it's like we got to, because the whole time as we're growing up, people are telling us, oh no, that's not how life is. That's not how life is. That's not how life is. And then you just kind of like lose that childlike, spirit, the childlike spirit. And, it's unfortunate that's how it is.
Yeah. And there's elements of maturing as an adult that you need new skill sets, but there's qualities of children that we have to hold on to, that if we lose those qualities that children possess, children are actually masters of certain character traits that adults oftentimes atrophy in. And one of those is masters of the learning process, that meta skill. And it's because how do we learn? We learn when we play, not when we're bored, not when we're stressed or anxious. When we're stressed and anxious, the learning center shut down. It's fight or flight. Like we learn through play, we learn through fun, we learn through awe and wonder and curiosity. And then we learn when we're not afraid. And that's right. Like children's heart are open, they're playing. And it looks like they're playing, but they're discovering the world. They're little scientists. And it's like, we as adults have to go back and work those muscles because we've been programmed to care what people think. And it's like, so I lived in Mexico for 1.5 years and learned Spanish. And that's how I learned the language again. I became like a child, and I would just practice, and it was all in good fun, but they would laugh at me and I would say just crazy things in Spanish and they would laugh and giggle. But it was like, okay, I have to be okay with looking like a complete idiot. And that's going to accelerate and 10x the speed at which I can learn. And if I'm afraid of sounding stupid, I will never learn the skill. So you're so on point with that, man.
Yeah, I got nothing else to add to that one. That was spot on, man.
Another question for you, as we're sort of winding down. My phone is dying. Do you have any quotes that you live by? And sometimes I have quotes that are resonating, sometimes not. Is there a quote or two, either for your whole life or in this season, that you're like, man, this is kind of my drumbeat?
Yeah, I got two quotes that come to mind that I always think about.
Hit me.
First quote is this, it has to do with self-discipline, obviously.
Come on.
And it says self-discipline is everything. The person who masters themselves masters the world, can master the world. The second one is, if you want to be successful, look at what the 90% are doing and do the exact opposite. Or you got to do what others won't so you can have what others can't. Those are the quotes that I always like in my head. I continue, listen to over and over again, like think about over and over again, because that's kind of what life's all about. Like most people wouldn't be getting on a call, or most people are not going to pick up a book and read it to learn a new skill. Most people are not going to start a YouTube channel. They want to do all these things, but they won't do these things. They won't take the step to do it because they're worried about what other people think. For a long time, I'll share something with you. I wanted to start a YouTube channel. But I was worried about, how I look on camera and my voice, and I don't like to hear myself speak, and all these things that I was worried about that had nothing to do with starting a YouTube channel. And then I just had to say to myself, man, like, you've been trying to do this thing forever. Are you gonna do it, or are you just gonna continue to put it off for tomorrow? Because one day tomorrow is not gonna come, and you're gonna wish you did it. And I don't want to live with regret. Like, that's the number one thing I don't want to live with. So I try to do the things that I wanna do with my life, and not live with regret every single day. Because that right there, regret, that is a silent poison. That is like something I never want to. Well, I think we're all somehow in some way we experience regret in some way, but I want to make sure that when I do experience regret, it's on the most minimum scale possible. So I mean, those are the quotes I live by.
That's so good, and it's so true. Man, the hardest game is to master ourselves. Like that's the hardest game I've ever been in, is when you start your own business. There ain't nobody telling you to do nothing, and telling me being my own boss is the hardest thing I've had to do. Me leading myself in all areas of my life, relationships, my inner world, right? You just take in the quiet, secret place of your inner being. Nobody ever will know what you're really thinking. No one will ever know what you're feeling. No one will ever know. You can communicate it to some degree, but it's like in that place, what kind of man will I be when I'm laying in bed at night and I'm in a relationship with me? I know me, and it's like, do I like who I am? And so it's so true, man. Mastering yourself and looking like, what are the masses doing? And that's, if I don't want their life, I should not emulate. I should do the exact opposite. And so, man, it's so on point, and it's such an honor to have you on the show, Stephen, truly. And it's so cool to be running this race with you in Myron Golden's coaching program. It's been so cool to connect with you and a number of others. And I feel a kindred spirit in you. And so thanks for taking the time to come on today, and any final words, and then also how can people find you? I'll put it in the show notes, your podcast link, but just so that people can hear it. Final words, and then how can people find you?
Well, any final words I would say is the most important skill to acquire in life is awareness, and not just awareness about ourselves, but awareness about the people around us, awareness about our environments, and what's if you have awareness, because a lot of people they're sleepwalking every single day. It's a sleepwalk, and there's things happening in front of their eyes, and they're just not even, hip to what's going on in front of their eyes. So I would say self-awareness, number one, being able to look at yourself and be critical of what you do, like just being able to pick apart how the day went. Okay, could I have done this better? And doing it in a constructive way too. You know, because a lot of people they put themselves down. It's not about putting yourself down. It's about how can I improve? And what could I have done better? So that's the last I would leave. I would leave with is that message of being able to be aware of what's going on with you, how you react to things, and how you react with others. And then if anyone who wants to find me, you can find me I'm on Instagram, Hugh Story. That's HUGHSSTORY. You can also find me the podcast you brought up, Blueprints to Freedom podcast. I'm on all podcast platforms, and I'm also on YouTube. You can find me at Blueprints to Freedom. That's my YouTube channel. And
that's what's up.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Appreciate you, extending the opportunity to let me, get on here with you. And I really do appreciate a lot of the things that you said. I learned a lot from you too, man. It's all a learning process for all of us, and I think that we're all constantly learning. You should never stop learning, and you can always learn from somebody. So I really do genuinely appreciate getting on here with you, man. Like, really do. I think I'm not hearing you. I don't know if the mic turned off or.
Is that on? Check.
Yep, gotcha.
Boom. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps another episode of The Good Life with